Wednesday afternoon, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. We'll talk a little bit about the Cavs, who clinched in a few minutes. We begin by talking about the Browns. A former NFL wide receiver, Keyshawn Johnson, on what he thinks the Browns should do with their second pick in this upcoming draft.
Don't take a quarterback. You either take Travis Hunter or you take Abdul Carter. If you want to take Abdul Carter and you pair him up with Myles Garrett, now people got to pick and choose what side they're going to protect. Is it the left side, the right side? Can you move Abdul Carter all the way around? Hell, can you put them both on the same side at times in Jim Schwartz's defense? Or you take a Travis Hunter, who is a two-way go guy for you. He can play on the offensive side, the defensive side. So you pair him up offensively at times with Jared Jeudy and company, but predominantly defensively, you want to play a lot of man-to-man. You want to do some things on the back end where now you got Denzel Ward, one of the top lockdown corners in the National Football League. You got Newsome. You can move him inside predominantly and have him play on the nickel. And now you got a Travis Hunter. Across the board, you got three terrific corners because in this league, you have to have three. Four, depending on the offenses that you go up against. There's no more back in the day where there could only be one corner to go with that one receiver. Teams got multiple receivers.
Your number two is getting $30
Your
million.
number two is getting 30, and your number three is in the 20s. So you got to look at it from a defensive standpoint and be able to make the right choice and the right move.
All very true, but you also have to score points. Here's Mel Kiper, Jr., draft analyst from ESPN, with how he thinks the Browns should use Travis Hunter if they draft him.
With Cleveland, if he goes to Cleveland at 2, the juice that they need on offense, he will provide. The coverage ability, they got corners, but you can never have enough corners. So when you get into a situation where it's late in the first half and you need that stop because teams are going to get the ball there and to start the second half, double it up, or late in the game, comes down to a final drive or two in all these NFL games, right? He's got to be out there. Deion said it best. You can't have Travis Hunter standing next to the coordinator when your corners are getting toasted and we're in the final couple minutes of a game and we need to stop. He's got to be out there. So Travis Hunter, hey, you know about safest, riskiest? Hey, if he's not great one way, he's going to be great somewhere else, and he'll probably be really good or great both ways. So while he's young, he's going to play both ways. Wide receiver, predominantly at Cleveland, sprinkle him in at cornerback.
That does make sense without question. Former Raiders general manager Mike Mayock with his thoughts about quarterback Shedeur Sanders after his pro day.
I look at Shedeur, and the pro day really changed nothing for me and for most people around the league, I don't think. He throws a beautiful deep ball. He can drop it in the bucket. I thought that was the highlight for him. I think there were no major red flags, nor was there any major advancement. Oh, we never saw that, and he's the savior. So I don't think the pro day really changed anything other than confirm a lot of stuff about him. Here's my concern, Rich. I think sometimes we let draft position trump the correct fit. And the irony of, say, Aaron Rodgers is he ended up in the right place even with all the Brett Favre stuff. He had to sit for a while. He learned his craft. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, Andy Reid traded up to 10 to get Patrick Mahomes, and he ended up in the right place. The Baltimore Ravens traded up to 32 to get Lamar Jackson. Think of that. Lamar Jackson at 32.
Again, if Shedeur Sanders is here, you better have some playmakers around him. We'll talk plenty of Browns with Tim Bielik and Chris Easterling coming up. Cavs trying to wrap up the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference, which would mean home court advantage through the Eastern Conference playoffs against the Bulls yesterday at Rocket Arena. And Evan Mobley got things rolling, gets the driving layup for the bucket. Mobley also shown he can do it outside. Open for three, he knocks it down. He had 21 points. Cavs really took this in control in the second quarter. Garland pulls up, knocks down the three. He had a team high 28 points. Garland also creating some offense. DeAndre Hunter for the dunk. Hunter had 17 points. Cavs pull away and win it to get that top spot in the Eastern Conference. 135-113 the final. We'll go inside the locker room to see the celebration and hear from Kenny Atkinson.
What you got?
playing on 3, 1, 2, 3.
I think you celebrate these moments, you know. We'll talk about going forward, what that looks like. But tonight we celebrate, and you know, I think the guys are super happy in that locker room, and you know, I think we got out of the gate so quick. You know, we got ahead of it early, and then you know we had some ups and downs these last month, but really proud of the guys, proud of the organization. It's hard to win 63 games in this league. It's hard to be the first seed. We all know that. So you know, great accomplishment. Obviously, we are hungry for more.
Plenty of Cavs talk with Ethan Sands, Cavs beat reporter, coming up a little later in the show. Guardians home opener. It was cold. It's Progressive Field, and the offenses were cold both ways. Ben Lively, a nice strikeout, gets that one looking lively. Got the start and was really good. Corner comes back over the outside edge and a strikeout. He went 5 innings, 2 hits, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts for Ben Lively. Got some help defensively as well. Take a look at Gabriel Arias. Little glove work to get the out. Game was scoreless in the 9th inning. And bases loaded. And it's Nolan Jones drawing the bases loaded walk from Mike Clevenger, who gave up a single to Santana and then some walks and then the game-winning walk-off. 1-0. The Guardians win it. Here's Nolan Jones talking about the game-winning at-bat.
Felt like I hit the ball hard all day. Past 2 weeks have been absolutely insane for me with everything in my life. And felt like I had been hitting the ball well. I was just like, when's something going to go my way? And so, you know, to get an opportunity to come in that last at bat in that situation, I mean, that's what you dream about as a kid.
We just love playing at home. We do. Even if it's cold, even if it's, you know, snowy, whatever it might be the next few days. But it was good to be back home. It was good to be a Progressive, see our fans. It was really awesome to see them all come out in the cold as well. So we had a blast today. It's a huge win for us. Those can be momentum wins sometimes, and we're just really looking forward to getting back here tomorrow.
Again, Guardians found a way to get it done. They will play the White Sox again coming up in a couple hours over at Progressive Field, trying to get on a roll. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Browns. Tim Bielik up first, Sports4CLE. We'll be right back talking Browns. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. Turn our attention to the Cleveland Browns. Rick Bucher from FS1 speak on what he thinks the Browns should do at number 2.
They should pass on taking a quarterback with the number 2 pick. The definition of insanity, we all know it, right? You keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Like, they've done this enough times with quarterbacks. I'm just going to run down a quick list on you. Baker Mayfield, Johnny Manziel, Brandon Weeden.
But Baker was the right pick, man. They messed that up. Go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry, but they messed that up.
But there was also question marks about each and every one of those guys as to whether they should be taken where they were taken, right? And it didn't work out for whatever reason, right? And I feel like that's what we're talking about with these quarterbacks in this draft. Nobody's saying there's that Shedeur is a sure thing. People aren't even saying Cam Ward is a sure thing, right? And in the meantime, probably the biggest reason is that I saw the Browns 2 years ago go 11-6 and make the playoffs, playing 5 different quarterbacks Why? Because their defense was elite.
Yeah.
And you have the opportunity, whether it's Abdul or Travis, and we can have that debate in terms of what would be the smarter pick, but you have the ability to go get somebody elite to add to your strength.
With that, let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Tim, I don't often agree with Rick Bucher, but I do in this instance. And you can debate all you want about Baker Mayfield. Josh Allen, doing better. Lamar Jackson, doing better. Now, did anybody know that? No, but the guys drafting should know more than the guys talking about it on TV.
I mean, that's a fair argument to make, but I do want to push back on something Rick Bucher said. Say the idea of, definition of insanity, saying the Browns have done this before. They've taken 2 quarterbacks in the top 10 since 1999, Tim Couch and Baker Mayfield, and you could argue that those are the 2 best quarterbacks they've drafted since they've come back. All the other guys they're mentioning drafted 20 years later, those are basically darts at a dartboard or lottery tickets at that point. So I can't really go ahead and call those shots. Those are dart throws, and dart throws are different than taking shots and basically stepping up to the plate and swinging on a quarterback. And what are you saying about defense? Yeah, it's true that Browns have the #1 defense in 2023, but the issue is defenses have a lot more variance year over year. We saw that play out in 2024 when obviously we kind of expected they were going to take a step back, and they did. But part of that, again, was also the offense was so historically bad. Again, 12th worst ever by DVOA. And if you take the Jameis Winston games out, the worst that DVOA has ever measured. That was an offense that kept putting that defense in bad positions again and again and again, and they couldn't succeed because of it. No defense can win by itself in the NFL. You have to be able to score the football, kind of like what you were saying earlier in the show. So, I mean, I'm still a big Travis Hunter guy. I'm gonna be that guy until the Browns do decide otherwise in 2 weeks in the draft. I keep saying Shedur's going to be a #1 guy. Spoiler alert, I have a 7-round mock coming in the morning for the Browns. Shedeur is going to be my pick at #2 there. So I have no reason to think otherwise right now.
So, again, you've addressed this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. You think Shedeur Sanders is the answer for the Browns at quarterback. What makes you think that?
I think it's what's between the ears that is high end with Shedeur Sanders, high end football intelligence, high end IQ. The guy just lives and breathes football. I mean, I talk so much about how much pro bloodlines matter. I mean, you can't do much better in bloodlines than if you're Deion Sanders' kid. And just the fact that he dealt with the pressure of Colorado so well, a program that was covered about as intensely as anybody in college football the last 2 seasons, despite being one of the worst Power 4 programs in the country at that time. He did what I still think what I said last week on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast is the #1 thing I need a quarterback to do. Elevate the talent around you and make your teammates better. And he did that, going from 11 wins to 11 losses 2 years ago to leading a team that won 9 games. Now, wins are not a quarterback stat. I understand that. But again, I've talked so much about how he had no running game. He had one of the worst offensive lines in college football, and they were still productive. So I look at Shedeur, yeah, the arm strength is not the greatest, but if you know where you're going with the football and you know the perfect spot to place it, you can make up for not having the arm that guys like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have.
So this comes from Mary Kay Kavich. Tweets out the Browns have hosted Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck for top 30 visits on Tuesday. Again, that isn't to say that they're going away from Shedeur Sanders. It is to say they are looking at every option that could be available at 33 and in the 3rd round as well. I think those were again, Jackson Dart might sneak into the 1st round. Jalen Milroe might. All 3 of those guys aren't going in the 1st round, in addition to Shedeur and Cam Ward.
No, they're not. And I think if that's part of the other equation of passing on Shedeur, especially if you like him at all, is because you give up the control of the draft and you're kind of waiting it out and hoping that one of those guys falls into an area, say, just ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers where you can jump ahead of them and trade up. But, like you said, it's due diligence. You want to uncover every little piece of information that you possibly can about all these guys. You want to get to know every little detail and figure out every little thing about a quarterback because it's such a monumental decision. I mean, the Browns need to find some kind of answer at the quarterback position as far as a long-term possibility. It doesn't mean they're going to find the guy this year, but you still got to swing. You got to give it a shot. And the best way to do the shot, take that shot at the hardest position to evaluate, is get all the information you could possibly get. What kind of person is he? What kind of worker is he? What kind of leader is he? How can he explain, things that didn't go quite right when they're looking at the film, for example. For example, I would say Jackson Dart's fourth quarter questions. I would imagine those are things I'd be looking at. Jalen Milroe, same, issues with why the short passes aren't as good as the medium throws. And it's as the long throws, I should say, and et cetera, et cetera. But bottom line, the Browns wouldn't be doing their job right now if they didn't investigate every possible option that they could go for within their first two or even their first three picks at quarterback. I think bottom line, if they don't take one or two, they have to have one by the middle of day number 2.
All right, so as you might gather, a lot of interest fan-wise relative to the quarterback. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I think that we should go get either Shedeur Sanders or Jalen Milroe. Don't get me wrong, Jalen Milroe is really good, but I compare him to Bo Nix because they were talking bad about Bo Nix, and look at him now. He's a playoff quarterback. So I say go take Jalen Milroe or Shedeur Sanders. Please, tell me what you think. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Here's the thing. If you're taking Jalen Milroe, you better go get another veteran, because you want to make sure by the time you're ready to start him and put him on the field, he's absolutely ready. He's got to work on mechanics. There's a lot of things. I think he has a huge upside. I don't know if he's going to get there. He's probably the riskiest of the quarterbacks. High risk, high reward. I know you're sold on Sanders. I don't dislike Shedeur Sanders, but if you're taking a pick at number 2, you better get somebody who is Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett. You got to get a foundational piece that you are convinced is going to be a guy that's there for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any question about it. I mean, I'm not saying, don't take Shedeur Sanders just because you have to take the quarterback. Take him if you believe him. And I personally believe him after, watching a lot of Colorado football over the last 2 years. They were always featured a lot on Fox and FS1 and ESPN, all those places, and all he did was really play at a very consistent level. Some of the games they lost, Oregon, Nebraska, BYU, for example, all were games where I felt like he had no shot because his offensive line was just that mismatched, that much of a disadvantage. But going back to what the caller was saying about Jalen Milroe, I don't agree with stylistically, he's not Bo Nix. I say he's closer to Jalen Hurts, but although I think Milroe is a faster runner than Jalen Hurts was. I put on the podcast on Friday, I said that Milroe's athleticism for me falls somewhere between Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts as a runner. And I think Milroe's got outstanding speed. I think of the quarterbacks in this draft, his speed is the best tool period of any of those quarterbacks. If you want to throw a baseball term out there, just tools, when it comes to just the tool of a player, Jalen Milroe's speed is the best pure tool, I think, of any quarterback in this draft. But what we were saying with Jalen Milroe, I would absolutely trade up in the first round. If I don't take Shedeur Sanders second overall, I would try to get ahead of the Steelers or the Rams to take Jalen Milroe. But I'm with you. With Jalen Milroe, one thing I've been saying this whole time, you have to do everything in your power to not play him as a rookie. Everything you can possibly do to not play him until he's beyond ready. I'm saying to the point where his footwork is this revamped footwork that he's been working on since the Browns worked with him at the Senior Bowl on his footwork, and it seems like he's taken that to heart. He really, based on all the reporting you see out there, takes to coaching. He's an incredibly hard worker, and that's all great. That's exactly what you want to see from a quarterback. If I'm committing resources to him in that 5th-year option, I want him to be over ready. So if that means trading for Kirk Cousins and having Kenny Pickett be the backup and Jalen Milroe basically be your redshirt guy for as much of 2025 as possible, so be it. Because you want him to be ready to go and everything truly committed to muscle memory, so that when he's in game action and everything starts flying around, that he's not straying from the things he's been working on for several months.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look at it this way: if you're thinking about Milroe, he has to force me to put him into a game because he has done everything during the week that we've been working on since the time we drafted him. That's where you're at with Milroe relative to playing in an NFL game. Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we're going to have Tim's and my 2.0 mock draft. Sports4CLE, he'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, you know, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million. New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
We continue talking draft and Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So Tony Rizzo and Tony Grossi, ESPN Cleveland, talking about a trade in one of the mock drafts that we'll look at in just a minute. But here's Rizzo and Grossi talking about this mock draft.
Mason Cameron of Pro Football Focus suggests the Browns trade down from 2 to 10 with the Bears, and you get 10, 39, and 148 this year, and a 2026 first-round draft pick to go 8 spots. You're still in the top 10.
Wow.
If you can assure me Sanders would be there at 10, I'd make that deal tonight, 2 weeks before the draft.
How about if I substitute the name Jackson Dart?
No.
You
I'm not
wouldn't take
Jackson.
that deal in Jackson Dart?
At 10?
Yes.
You think overdrafted Shador is at 2? You're going to take Jackson Dart in the top 10? What has he done?
They're in the same circle.
In the last 4 months. But when the season ended and he was a third-round pick, what has he done?
Riz,
Go to an underwear Olympics?
He doesn't have a famous father pointing
And that's
targets
why
at
you
everybody.
like him. And that's why you like him.
He
Yeah.
doesn't have a hypester.
You're holding Dion against my
Nobody
guy.
is hyping Jackson Dart.
Good. They shouldn't be. He ran a college offense that made him look really good with some easy throws.
Tim, so it's kind of interesting. The mock draft that they're referring to is from Pro Football Focus. So here's kind of that mock draft, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But they had the Titans going Cam Ward #1. They had the Bears trading up with the Browns. Bears get the 2nd overall pick. The Browns get 10, 39, 148, and a 2026 first-round pick. Then they also had the Browns trading with the Vikings, who traded back to the 32nd pick, which was held by the Eagles. But the Browns get 32 and 97. The Vikings get 33, 94, and 179. It ends up with the Bears taking Abdul Carter at 2, the Browns taking Mike Green at 10, and then trading into the last spot in the first round to get Jackson Dart. They had the Steelers taking Shador at 21. I don't think there's any way they trade back 10 spots and take Mike Green. I mean, people are talking about the Browns needing an edge guy, and to a certain extent, I get it. But you've got Myles Garrett, Isaiah McGuire, Obo Okenronquo, people are forgetting about. It's not like they don't have pretty good young edge rushers. There's no way they're taking an edge rusher other than Abdul Carter in the top 10 in this draft.
You're also forgetting Alex Wright, who really played well at the end of 2023.
Yes, Alex Wright was hurt. They've got good young edge rushers, and they need playmakers. Give me 4 of them.
That's why if I were doing that trade and I feel like I wouldn't do it, I would take Tyler Warren of Penn State if he's there at number 10. I know he's a tight end, but you're talking a tight end who can run out of a Wildcat and had numerous big runs throughout 2024. He was clearly Penn State's best receiver, and teams just couldn't stop him throughout the season. And that's not a knock on Mike Green. I really like Mike Green. I think he's just got this relentless attitude he plays with, just such a dynamic pass rusher. Really, his stock has been on the rise since the end of the season, put up ridiculous numbers in Marshall. But yeah, that's a lot to give up. If you're going from Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter to taking Mike Green, that's a lot to give up if I'm not improving my offense. And then Jackson Dart at 32, trading all that back up to get him. I've been on record. I would take Jalen Milroe easily before Jackson Dart. I just have major concerns about Dart's play in the fourth quarter. I talked about it on the podcast on Friday that I feel like if you're investigating him, you have to figure out what happened in the fourth quarter. Is it bad decision making? Is it footwork issues? What's going on in those situations? Because you need a quarterback who's gonna be able to rise up in the biggest moments of the game. And Jackson Dart, 3 separate games last season, including in Florida, a must-win games getting in the playoff, couldn't get it done in the fourth quarter or in overtime. And in the NFL, where so many games come down to those situations, that is a huge red flag in my mind.
Well, I'm guessing you would take Shedeur Sanders at 10 instead of Mike Green, because that way you would get the first-round pick next year. You'd get the Bears' first-round pick next year, and you'd end up with Shedeur Sanders at 10. This is also kind of interesting. So this is from Daniel Jeremiah, NFL draft analyst. Talked to several GMs and head coaches over the last week. Everyone seems to agree that the draft is a starter draft. May not be a ton of star power, but your goal should be to come away with 3 or 4 solid starters. They're out there, go find them. And you know what? That's exactly what the Browns need. They have, I think it's 5 in the top 104, something along those lines. They need to come away with 4 really good to bordering on star type starters out of this draft.
Yeah, and that's a good assessment from Daniel Jeremiah. I mean, obviously he's one of the best out there, and that's a very good assessment of this draft. Is just the depth, I think, of this class is pretty solid. I mean, it's a clear top 2 as far as, non-quarterbacks with Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, and then it's a pretty big drop off after those guys, and maybe Mason Graham's in his own tier, and after that it kind of flattens out. But I think between 25 and 55 or so, there's not a lot of delineation, and maybe the same with guys that can go early in the 3rd round and maybe into the middle of the 4th round. So there's not much drop off in those tiers, and even just doing mock drafts and whatever, I keep finding, in the 2nd round, the 3rd round, even the 4th round, if I trade around late 4th, early 5th, I'm still finding guys that I think can contribute, and at the bare minimum, be backups in it 2 deep. So certainly this is a draft where the Browns with 10 picks at least right now, can replenish some of the depth that they weren't able to attain as a result of the picks they traded away for Deshaun Watson. So this is a draft where they got to be able to just maybe not necessarily find guys who could plug and play, but guys who can be eventually quality starters, maybe even at the bare minimum compete for a Pro Bowl in their rookie contracts. I mean, that would be the ideal goal. Doesn't always work that way because hit rates are always so much lower the further you get on the draft, but certainly should be able to find some good football players.
All right, time for us to do mock draft 2.0. So we'll get this thing rolling, and we know that we start this, and it's going to end up being Cam Ward going number 1. So we're going to start the draft, and when we click on it, we will see that the first pick in the draft by the Titans is going to end up being Cam Ward. Always has been. So the last time we did this, we ended up with Shedeur Sanders, Kenneth Grant, Caleb Johnson, Jaden Higgins, and Cam Scatterbo, and Will Howard. So here we go, and we will get this thing rolling. And we are told that our computer is frozen, so there, we got it rolling.
There we go.
So Cam Ward is there. We did Shedeur number 1 overall last time. For the sake of doing this a little different, let's take Travis Hunter, and then we'll go. So if Andrew Berry goes Travis Hunter at number 2, let's pick Hunter, and then we will go there. And they'll run through it here as we keep going. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, if you're not going quarterback number 2, I mean, Travis Hunter makes a lot of sense because he's a guy who can step in pretty quickly and be a pretty good receiver right off the jump, and it gives you a dynamic element in this offense as the Browns you really haven't had in a very long time. They haven't had it's hard to remember the last time they had a top 10 receiver, and Travis Hunter certainly has the potential.
All right, looks like the computer is not behaving again with us. So let's It took Abdul Carter. Jeez, this is like draft night. It's taken 5 minutes between times. All right, you know what? We'll come back and we'll try to do this the next time we have you on, Tim. So we'll do that mock draft 2.0 next time around. Again, Tim, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
Tim Bielik, make sure you check him out, cleveland.com and The Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns with Chris Easterling from the Akron Beacon Journal. Sports4CLE. Be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Hey, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million. New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, this is Mike out of Cleveland. I don't think the Myles Garrett situation is over with. I think they draft Carter. They go along with Myles for the end of the year, maybe middle of the season, get a trade package for him next year because there's no QB that's going to be able to win 5 games. We got first-round draft grades on second-round QBs. That's not going to work. I think we build that defense. We may get a package for Myles for the following season, come back and we build on maybe a Jalen Milroe, give him some more weapons for the second season. Whatever QB we get, it's going to be a process. So I say we get the end just in case we have to give up Myles Garrett. If we keep Myles Garrett, great. You got a better end. You got somebody to finally run with him. Then we just build up on weapons. It's not that hard.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. A very interesting point relative to Abdul Carter and what exactly you can do with him. I don't have a problem with them drafting Abdul Carter. I think the offense needs some playmakers. You look at it, and you got Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku. Whomever is the quarterback is going to need some kind of playmakers to develop and go along with him. Kind of interesting, you look at number 2 overall, and you got to come away with a guy that is making an impact without question. So we're trying to connect with Chris Easterling, Browns beat reporter for the Akron Beacon Journal, and let's see if we can, if Chris can hear us. Chris, as always,
you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Appreciate you joining us. So, Chris, what are your thoughts? Number 2 overall. What do you think? What do you think the Browns should do? The caller just said, I don't know if you could hear him. He said he didn't think Myles Garrett's situation was over. I don't know. There's 160 million reasons why it should work out moving forward.
I think that ship has sailed. I think they want
Miles here long term. They believe he is still a centerpiece of this organization. He's a guy that they need on this roster because if they truly want to contend at some point in the near future, whether it's 25, 26, at the latest 27. But I mean, there's a Venn diagram out there that you have contender team that can provide the Browns what they need in compensation, and teams that can provide Miles the compensation financially in terms of the contract long term. And I just don't think there's that many teams that fall into that mix to, even if they wanted to eventually trade Miles again. I think that was part of the problem, quite honestly, when Miles made his trade demand in the first place. So, I think that Andrew Berry has said it, Kevin Stefanski has said it, Jimmy Haslam has said it. They love Miles. They want Miles here. They believe Miles is a leader in this organization, and so I see no reason to think that even if they were to draft Abdul Carter, that would mean Myles Garrett. You look to move a future Hall of Famer.
So what do you? I know you've written a couple articles. What do you think the Browns should do it to? And you also wrote another article. Kevin Stefanski thinks there's multiple prospects that the Browns would be thrilled to have it to. Take us through those two articles and kind of what you think they're going to end up doing it to.
I think it's ultimately Travis Hunter, and this is why. I think it's about value. Yes, they need the quarterback. Nobody is denying they need the quarterback, and that's up to and including, Kevin, Andrew, and Jimmy and D. But it's about value, and it's about, do they really believe Shedeur Sanders, because that would be the person you take in theory at 2 is the second best quarterback in this draft. Is he worth the number 2 pick? And I can hear people yelling, quarterback's the most important position, blah blah blah. Yes, but I think this quarterback class, it's just not. I mean, back in October, November, we thought this quarterback class was terrible. I don't think it's terrible. I think there's prospects there. I just don't think the number 2 pick in the draft is there. So with that being said, Travis Hunter makes the most sense. It's value. It's a guy who can play multiple positions and meeting multiple sides of the football. He's probably the best overall talent in the draft. It's either he or Abdul Carter. You need football players on this team. That's what Jimmy Haslam said last week to us in Florida. That's what Andrew Berry said to us. That's what Kevin Stefanski said. And the way you get that is you don't pass up on opportunities when you draft at number 2 to get those type of elite talents. And I think Travis Hunter is an elite talent. I think Abdul Carter is an elite talent. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is that elite talent that you passed up on. You can get him or a quarterback somewhat comparable at a lower pick where it's better value.
So they've had Milroe, Shuck, Dart all coming in recently. Do you think that tells you anything about what they're thinking about the position?
I think it tells me they're thinking it's a very important position, but other than that, no. Because everybody, if you look at it, they've met with all of those guys at the Combine. They've now met with them privately, either prior to their pro day or, in the case of Chuck, in Eugene, Oregon, before going to last week before going to Colorado for Sanders and Hunter's pro day. And now they've had everybody in for a meeting in Berea. I just think it's doing their due diligence. We need to know everything we can possibly know, because we know we need to take a quarterback. We're going to take a quarterback in this draft, but we need to make sure that we have all the information possible. And that could lead, the meeting could lead to say, hey, take Shedeur at 2. It could lead, hey, we can trade back in when you get to this point in the first round. Let's try to trade back in to get Shador or Jackson Dart or whomever, or wherever. But I just think it's them doing their due diligence and really making sure they have all the information possible out beyond just the tapes and the workouts, so that they can make the right pick.
Chris Easterling, Browns beat reporter for the Akron Beacon-Journal, and I. Going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk more about the quarterback position. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Yeah, just getting this bad boy ready for the new $2 million Extreme Cash Scratch-Off from the Ohio Lottery. It's got $38 million in total prizes. We have cup holders, monster truck tires, obviously. Just installed the air horn for that wah, 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 for when someone reveals Extreme and wins every prize on the scratch-off. My boss thinks the light show is a bit much, but how do you play? You just scratch it off. You can win up to $2 million. Oh, how do you reach it? I'll go get a ladder.
We continue talking Browns with Chris Easterling, Browns beat reporter for the Akron Beacon-Journal. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland. A couple things. The two kids from Colorado, Sanders and Hunter, I pass on them. They never played no elite teams or nothing to showcase their talent. Jackson State, give me a break. And then Colorado, come on. All right, number two, I'm still in charge of Duke Carter, and get us a quarterback or running back at the top of the second. Let me hear your thoughts, brother. And I love you. God bless you. And you and the family be safe as always.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Chris, I get the concerns about who Colorado played, but with Hunter, man, that's some elite talent. I doesn't matter who's on the field. He seems to be able to run by people.
Jerry Rice played at Mississippi Valley State and was a Hall of Famer. Walter Payton played at Jackson State. Where they play, I mean, Travis Hunter was going to Florida State before Deion got involved and recruited him to Jackson State. So Travis Hunter, I mean, I think we overstate that somewhat. There have been great players that have come out of FCS and lower, and there's been busts that have come out of Alabama, Ohio State, USC. So, but, I just don't think, again, it's about talent too. It's about you need football players. And that's what Jimmy Haslam said. We just need really good football players was what he said. And I think that's where Travis Hunter, comes in the picture. I wouldn't be opposed to Abdul Carter, but to ding Travis Hunter because he played 2 years at Colorado, which last I checked was in a Power 5 conference at the time, by Power 4 last year. I mean, Colorado has been historically a pretty good football program. So I don't, one of your best players played at Nevada. So spare me the who did they play, shtick about this. Take the best talent, and to me that best talent is Travis Hunter.
So when you look at this roster, where do you see the holes other than? I mean, there's a gaping one at quarterback. What do you need? What does this roster need?
It needs a running back. It needs a left tackle. It needs help quite frankly, I mean, you need multiple offensive linemen, I think. It needs help along the defensive line, whether it's both at edge to kind of help with Miles, and as well as defensive tackle. It needs an influx of youth there, because you either have unproven guys there, or you have guys with injury histories now that you've gotten now that Dalvin Tomlinson's left. You need safety help. You just have a lot of places where you need help. And look, you're not going to get them all this, you're not getting them all this draft. But if you can get 3 or 4 guys who can at least help, they can be contributors, they can be, they can, help you become, just get a little bit closer to where next year's draft you get 3 or 4 more, and that's how you turn this around and you turn this roster from an older roster whose windows, very well probably maybe closing, to a younger roster that's on the upswing, and so that's why I say, dwelling on positional needs and just kind of taking the Ozzie Newsome best player available approach, should be the way to go.
Yeah, when I look at it,
Although acknowledge needing to come away with a quarterback out of this, at least.
When I look at the offense, they need guys that threaten the defense. Who
playmakers?
Yeah, playmakers, absolutely. Because you've I guess Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, but man, there isn't. If you're sitting in a defensive room, there's not anybody that you're like, man, we got to make sure this guy doesn't beat us. I mean, Jeudy and Njoku are
Jerry
nice,
Jeudy.
Right? They're nice players, but I don't think defensive coordinators are staying up late trying to figure out how to keep the ball out of their hands.
Well, probably not as much as they would if there were others around them. If Jerry Jeudy, maybe he's not your one, he's your two because you have that number one receiver. If you know you have to worry about Jerry Jeudy on the play action because they have this this running game that and look, you got bad luck with Nick Chubb, with the injuries and everything, but that's sort of football and it's unfortunate, but it's just stacking those playmakers so that it's sort of if a defensive coordinator tries to plug this hole, well, there's three others over there he's got to worry about. That's what 2 years ago when David was having his great year, along especially once Joe got here. You just had other multiple guys. You had Amari, you had David, you had Jerome Ford was giving you enough that this offense could be could do something. And you don't do it if you only have like one or two players who maybe get that kind of highlighted on the scouting report, and that's what they have right now. They have one or two guys who get highlighted on the scouting report, and everybody else is just a guy, to be perfectly honest.
So I know you wrote an article, and take me through kind of the thought process. Browns have to stabilize the quarterback position before kind of taking that next step. So take us through that and kind of what you were thinking with that.
Well, it was back when Russell Wilson was on everybody wants the answer now. Everybody was hoping for, this, just get the answer to the quarterback question this year. And, I sort of, I related it to, like a house that was badly damaged. And before you can, really, gussy up the man cave or, the family room, just get it inhabitable. And this quarterback room really hasn't been, save for, 4 weeks in December of 2023. It really hasn't been inhabitable because it hasn't really, there's always just been something. Even when Jameis was there last year, the turnovers were so bad that it overwhelmed anything, any of the positives that Jameis could provide. Just needs stability in that room. You just need some professionalism, some just where you feel like every time out, okay, if nothing else, we're going to get a professional, solid performance out of our quarterback. It may not be great. It may not be 300 yards passing, but he can throw for 255 and a couple of touchdowns and take care of the football and just provide that, you just average even, NFL performance at that position. And once you get that, you sort of stabilize it and then you build on it and you start, then you can really, okay, now let's find, we stabilize the offense so we can at least, the offense can at least operate. Now we can go try to find the answer, because the answer is not going to be some guy you find in free. The answer is not Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson, or Carson Wentz or whomever. The answer is somebody that you are going to end up drafting probably. So, at least get, is that Kenny Pickett? I'm not going there yet, but, who knows? But just get somebody who can give you a professional performance on a Sunday afternoon, week after week after week, consistently, and then find that. Then you can sort of exhale a little bit, and then go and find that franchise quarterback. And I think that's sort of what they were even saying. Is like, look, the quarterback of the future might not be here right now in terms of the answer to the future. It might be next year, but they just need somebody in that room to give them solid professional performances on a consistent basis Sunday after Sunday.
Chris Easterling from the Akron Beacon-Journal, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Chris Easterling, make sure you check him out. Browns beat reporter for the Akron Beacon-Journal. Always good Brown stuff without question. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Ethan Sands, straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Hey, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Brian Windhorst, national NBA analyst, talking with Evan Mobley, whether he deserves the Defensive Player of the Year award. This is from the Hoops Collective.
I'm Defensive Player of the Year, whereas there's other guys out there going, I'm Defensive Player of the Year. But obviously, your body of work speaks for itself. It's kind of awkward to say vote for me, but that's kind of where we're at now. Your team is 60-something wins and you've been great. Is it a little bit strange to say, hey, please respect my game?
Yeah, it definitely is. I like to let my job on the court really talk. I'm not really too much of a talkative guy, but I think I definitely deserve this award just based on what we've been talking about this whole entire interview. And my defensive prowess, I feel like it's top tier from what I put out this whole season. And I'm going to keep doing that. And I really can't wait for the playoffs to up it even more.
So welcome in Ethan Sands, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. And Ethan, a young, modest guy, you can go ahead and say it. I deserve Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I cannot get over the fact that we're at this point of the NBA where we're legitimately asking guys to have the conversation themselves because other players are going around either podcasts or whatever it may be, interviews or post games, and they're literally going and saying that they're the Defensive Player of the Year. And that has been what has curated a lot of their garner for the award. And Evan Mobley has been the best defensive player of this season outside of Victor Wembanyama since the beginning of the season. And we know Victor Wembanyama will not be able to be eligible to play 65 games and be eligible for the award. So I don't think that it's any question that Evan Mobley is the defensive player of the year. I think the closest second is Dyson Daniels. I do not think Draymond Green is in the category of defensive player of the year this season. He's been great for the Warriors. Of course, he's one of their big players. And over the stretch of March, he's been a great defender. But over the entire course of the season, it just hasn't stood out to be better than Evan Mobley. And even after the game against the Chicago Bulls, when the Cavs clinched the Eastern Conference for #1 seed, we had to have the conversation with Evan. Like, you have to sit here and tell us why you're the defensive player of the year so we can go and write about it and tell the world, because that's where we're at. And Darius Garland was hyping him up, sitting next to him during that interview. But Evan Mobley for defensive player of the year, and I don't think it's really close.
All right. What do you think about the Cavs? They finally get that top seed locked up, home court advantage throughout the Eastern Conference. How important is that?
It's extremely important. Home court advantage is what allows them to have an upper hand on, if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Heck, if they get to Game 7 in any of the series, as we look back to last year, they had to go through the first round through Game 7, right? They had that home court advantage, and you got to see that they were able to take advantage of it. I don't think they have the comeback last season, and one of our reporters, Jimmy Watkins, columnist for cleveland.com, even had a conversation with Tristan Thompson after the game against the Chicago Bulls about last year and how he didn't believe that the Cavs would have come back from that deficit in Game 7 to pull out the win and get to the Eastern Conference semifinals without being on their home floor. So it's huge. And obviously, it also allows them to have the opportunity to rest for players when we talk about the last 3 games of the season. And then they have a week from their last game to their first playoff game to decide how they're going to mediate minutes, how they're going to practice, how they're going to recover, and get ready for that playoff series.
So Donovan Mitchell rolled his ankle against Kings, came back, played in the game, didn't play against the Bulls. How concerned? What's the level of concern with Mitchell? Obviously, you want him 100% plus for the playoffs.
100%. And as Kenny Atkinson described it before the game yesterday, it's mild, right? It's a mild ankle sprain. He's not very concerned about it, which is a great sign. But I would say that I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play for the rest of the regular season, because that's something that Kenny Atkinson mentioned after the game as something that, because they locked up the #1 seed, like, there is no reason for you to risk it. It sounded off all the bells and whistles, all the alarm bells when Donovan Mitchell was on the floor writhing in pain, like that. He is the ticket for them to get to where they want to go. Obviously, Evan Mobley and Darius Garland are who teams are going to have their eyes on, who executives and analysts are going to have their eyes on to make that run. But Donovan Mitchell is the proven playoff contributor. And without him, the Cavs are going to be in a much different situation. So as you mentioned, they need to have him at 100% plus for the playoffs, for Game 1 of the playoffs, for them to have the success that they've been waiting for, especially after this successful, historic regular season.
Yeah, I still remember him dragging his leg around against the Celtics. I don't want to see that again. We want him running up and down and bouncing all over the place. I know you wrote an article about this. 3 areas that they need to address before the playoffs. Take us through that and the level of concern that you have with those areas.
So the 3 areas that I mentioned were late game execution, shot making, and defense, right? And I believe the Cavs' late game execution as of late, as we talk about the mid-March to now, has been a little bit subpar, just because Kenny Atkinson has used different end of game lineups to figure out who he's going to be able to utilize in the playoffs when it comes to those end game minutes, and also just experimenting with how different players look together on the floor. So I don't have too big of concerns when it comes to that, but the biggest concern is Darius Garland, because he is a nominee for Clutch Player of the Year, and he hasn't been to that level since the All-Star break. And that was the main reason that the Cavs were able to have such great success in late game situations because Darius and Donovan were able to play off of each other and have success in those kind of scenarios. We know that the Cavs have the second most wins in clutch performances this season, and it's just a testament to what they've been able to do. We just want to see them get back to that level. Shot making, to me, is the most important when it comes to the playoff success, just because of how they've lived and died by the three-point shot this season. They had 25 three-pointers against the Chicago Bulls, but they also had 2 quarters where they had combined 6 three-pointers made. That was in the first and the third period, where they were not playing well, and they allowed the Chicago Bulls, and undermanned Chicago Bulls at that, to stay in those games. But the second and the fourth quarter, they combined for 19 triples, which elevated their lead and allowed them to come away with the victory and secure the #1 seed. And if the Cavs aren't making shots, this team has lost more games than you would expect, right? There have been 15 games, I believe, there's been 7 games this season where the Cavs have played and the opposing team has scored 130 or more points, right? So that means that they haven't been able to win those games either. They're 1-6 in those contests. So it's about leveling the playing field, having firepower, and shooting the ball with prowess. Then the defensive end, which is extremely important in the playoffs, because we know that the defensive identity of this team is going to be challenged. The physicality, the effort, the competitive level, and defense is how championships are won. I think that is also a key point when we come to the playoff series, because we know that they've had drop-offs and they've had slippages since the month of February, when they were top team in defensive category. So I definitely think it's a time to look at all of these 3 categories and figure out where they stand, how they can improve, and what is most important to them when it comes to winning games in the playoffs. And I think they need to do all 3 to get past each and every team, and especially Boston if they do face off in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Ethan Sands, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Ethan.
Thank you for having me.
Ethan Sands, make sure you check him out. Pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Really good Cavs coverage. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.